Chuck Bednarik played every snap like it was a street fight. Offense, defense, it didn't matter. If he was on the field, someone was getting hit. So how did one man go from a forgotten rookie buried on the depth chart to the face behind some of the most brutal, unforgettable moments in NFL history? What are you saying, guys? It's Zane here. Let's get into the video. After being drafted first overall in 1949, Chuck was reduced to a bench warmer for the first 2 games. But it was just 2 games. He could wait a bit to get a starting role. Well, Bednarik grew restless pretty quickly, so he just went to confront his head coach and asked for a trade. He wanted to go somewhere where he could actually play. Even though it wasn't his intention, from that moment he became a starter and played 169 of 172 games. There's a few players that come to mind that represent that tough, old school football, and Chuck Bednarik is high on that list. He was the last great so-called 60-minute man, meaning he spent the majority of his career playing every snap as a center on offense and a linebacker on defense. That toughness wasn't forged playing football though. At 18, he joined the Air Force fighting in World War II. I was never afraid on a football field, but I was afraid up there. The number 1 draft pick established himself as one of the best players in the NFL throughout the 50s with 7 straight All-NFL honors. But after the Eagles won the 1949 title in Bednarik's rookie season, the Eagles slipped into a decade of mediocrity. They only had 4 winning seasons during those 10 years. So Bednarik tried to quit twice. First in 1956 after the Eagles went 3-8-1, and then again after the 1959 season. The 60-minute man was getting older, so he couldn't play both ways. He shifted solely to playing center in 1957, but it was still taking a toll on him. Although don't mistake that for him softening up. During a game against the Browns, Chuck Noll smashed Bednarik in the face during a punt. As Chuck's lying there on the ground in a daze, he's trying to find who did it to him. He sees Chuck Noll, jumps up and screams in his face, "I'm gonna get you." Well, it's Bednarik, so he used more colourful language than what I just said. Fast forward 4 years, yeah, the guy can hold on to a grudge, and the two are playing again. At the end of the game, Bednarik finds Chuck Noll and just sucker punches him in the face. For that, he was fined $500 and forced to apologize. So during their next matchup, Bednarik goes up to Chuck Noll, and he's a little nervous. He's not sure how Noll's going to react. He did just punch him in the face after all. So he says sorry, and Chuck Noll looks at him up and down, stiffens up, and just says, "Bullshit." So after the Eagles went 7-5 in 1959, Bednarik was done. He retired. But after he welcomed his 5th daughter into the world in the 1959 offseason, he realized he actually needed the money, so he returned for the 1960 season. Players weren't as well paid as they are now. Bednarik's day job was selling concrete. That's how he got the nickname Concrete Charlie, said to be as hard as the concrete he sells. That was very accurate, because during an exhibition game, he tore his bicep, so it ended up falling to his elbow. He went to the sideline, pushed the bicep back to its original position, got the doctor to tape his arm up to keep it in place, and then went back into the game. Yeah, it was a different era. Entering the 1960 season, Chuck maintained his role as a center, but in week 5 against the Browns, the Eagles linebacker broke his leg. At this point, the NFL roster only had 38 players, so it didn't allow for as much depth. That meant Bednarik had to step up, and while he was a 7-time Pro Bowl linebacker, he hadn't played the position in almost 3 years. He fit back into the role seamlessly though, and as the season progressed, the Eagles rose to the top of the Eastern Conference. It was now week 9. The 6-1 Eagles faced the 5-1-1 Giants in a battle for first place. On Bednarik's plaque it reads, "Rugged, durable, bulldozing blocker, a bone-jarring tackler." That couldn't have been more evident in this game. Late into the 4th quarter, the Eagles had a 17-10 lead. The Giants have the ball. Quarterback George Shaw throws a pass behind Frank Gifford, so he has to adjust to catch it. As he turns back and heads to the sideline to stop the clock, he doesn't see Bednarik flying in for the tackle. Gifford gets knocked out cold. As Bednarik gets up, he screams, "This game is effing over." He gets carted off the field and the Eagles run out the clock. The Giants are then heading back to the locker room. At the same time, a body covered with a sheet is carted out of their locker room. The Giants players are frozen. They assume Gifford is dead and Chuck Bednarik killed him. So they thought. It turned out someone in the crowd had died of a heart attack. Gifford was already in the hospital. But the hit was devastating enough to force him to miss the remainder of the 1960 season and the entire 1961 season. Bednarik was a great blocker, but it was the power of his quote bone-jarring tackles, like the one he landed on Gifford, that defined his legacy. Despite the needed victory over the Giants, the job wasn't finished. They'd win out the rest of their games and then face the Green Bay Packers in the NFL Championship. At this moment, Chuck was the oldest player on the field, yet he would still play 139 out of 142 plays. In 1950, 1 year after Bednarik entered the league, the NFL had allowed for unlimited substitutions. That meant the days of two-way players were numbered. By 1960, being a specialist was standard, but Bednarik was a competitor. He wanted a piece of every play. Now, the Packers hadn't yet become the dynasty that defined the 60s, but they were still led by Vince Lombardi and were favored against the Eagles. The Eagles had a season full of close calls. In 6 of their 10 wins, they trailed entering the 4th, and also won 6 by less than a touchdown. Today was also a close game, but the Eagles defense stepped up. Despite ranking just 7th of 13 in defense that season, while the Packers made it to the red zone 4 times that game, they only gave up 6 points. Now fast forward forward to the end of the game. There's about 15 seconds left and the Eagles are up 17-13. The Packers have no timeouts, so the clock is ticking. The Packers have the ball at the Eagles 22. Bart Starr connects with Jim Taylor. Taylor bounces off a couple Eagle defenders and has his eyes on the end zone. But before he could go any further, an immovable object awaits him. Bednarik wrestles him to the ground and pins him there. Taylor's doing his best to twist his way out of it to get one more play off, but Chuck is just watching the game clock. 3, 2, 1. You can get up now, Jim. The game's over. That would be Lombardi's only postseason loss. Bednarik had played 58.5 minutes, every moment apart from the kickoffs, and he made the game-saving tackle. A 14-year career can't be boiled down to a single moment, but I think those two plays, the tackle against Frank Gifford and then Jim Taylor, give a perfect snapshot of his career. As Hall of Fame President David Baker said at Bednarik's memorial, even God must have looked down and said, you know, I don't make him like that anymore.